President Donald Trump has regularly boasted of his pro-Israel record. He did it again as he signed a new executive order, this time aimed at fighting what the White House sees as a growing problem of anti-Semitism on university campuses across the US.
This is our message to universities. If you want to accept the tremendous amount of federal dollars that you get every year, you must reject anti-Semitism. It's very simple.
Essentially, the order extends part of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It allowed the Department of Education to withhold federal funding from any college that discriminates on the grounds of race, colour or national origin. That now is extended to a religion, and critics say that effectively suggests Jews are a people who share the same race or collective national origin. The new order could significantly impact the BDS movement. It urges a boycott, divestment and sanctions campaign against the Israeli government for its treatment of Palestinians living in the region. Some have claimed BDS is anti-Semitic, while supporters say it's not targeting a religion, but political action. But as the group has grown on American campuses, it's been accused of creating a hostile climate for Jewish students.
By conflating the criticism of Israel and make it equal to anti-Semitism, they're trying to censor any free debate here in the US when it comes to the Israeli policies.
Donald Trump has aggressively backed Israel since taking office. He moved the US Embassy to Jerusalem in the face of international opposition and recognised the Golan Heights, territory seized from Syria, as part of Israel. But he's been accused of making anti-Semitic remarks and defending neo-Nazis who chanted anti-Jewish slogans. He was criticised for comments made in a speech to Jewish groups in Florida at the weekend for reinforcing Jewish stereotypes.
A lot of you are in the real estate business because I know you very well. You're brutal killers, not nice people at all, but you have to vote for them. You have no choice. You're not going to vote for Pocahontas, I can tell you that.
Many Jewish groups have praised the president's action. US Congress tried to take a similar action to the executive order. Even with bipartisan support, it stalled. Donald Trump's move breaks that logjam. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Let's speak to Omar Badad. He's the Deputy Director of the Arab American Institute. He's joining us from Washington. Thanks for joining us on the Al Jazeera News Hour. To you, what is this executive order really about? Is it about anti-Semitism and anti-discrimination, or is it about trying to suppress Palestinian advocacy on college campuses, as some people say it is?
It is definitely about suppressing pro-Palestine advocacy on college campuses under the guise of fighting anti-Semitism. But we know it's not about anti-Semitism for multiple reasons, including the fact that Donald Trump himself is a huge contributor to the problem of anti-Semitism in this country, including the clip that you played earlier, and also suggesting that American Jews who do not vote for him are somehow disloyal. He's been a huge part of the problem. And ultimately, what this executive order is about, it expands the definition of anti-Semitism to include criticism of Israel. And the risk here is that students on college campuses who are simply engaged in pro-Palestine advocacy for human rights could get into serious trouble simply because their criticism of Israel can now be construed as anti-Semitism. This, by the way, is blatantly unconstitutional. It's a violation of free speech, which is one of the most fundamentally cherished values in American life. So this has been an absolute disaster, and I think that it's only a matter of time before this is challenged and rescinded.
Yeah, we'll talk about how it can be challenged in a moment, but does it actually do anything to address the issue of anti-Semitism, which we know is on the rise in the United States?
So there is no question about the fact that anti-Semitism is on the rise, and it is a growing problem. And in fact, bigotry in many forms is rising in the current political climate that this president has contributed to. But the only change that this executive order makes is specifically that expansion of definition to include criticism of Israel. So harassment of American Jewish students on college campuses was already a violation of Title VI under civil rights, the Civil Rights Office. So there's nothing new on that particular front. This is clearly just an attempt to pander to the pro-Israel base that this president feels accountable to. He's surrounded by Jared Kushner and David Friedman and really right-wing pro-Israel hawks, and they have pretty much a base in this country that he's trying to appeal to as a way to gin up political frustration and see if he can build up some support leading up to the next election. That's what this is ultimately about. And in the process, the Constitution of the U.S. is being undermined by this president in an effort to pander to these forces. And back on the issue of how this can be challenged, which you brought up a moment ago, how do you see that process playing out? How can it be challenged and overturned? So it's important to note that this is not a new effort. This has already been an ongoing effort, including under the Obama administration. This has been litigated, where there were multiple complaints brought to the Civil Rights Office of the Department of Education trying to punish students who hold pro-Palestine activism on college campuses. And the Civil Rights Office under the Obama administration simply rejected those efforts and insisted that what is taking place is simply free political speech. Unfortunately, one of the people who was bringing those cases has now been put in charge of the Civil Rights Office under the Trump administration. His name is Ken Marcus, which is a huge part of the problem. But I think you're going to see that the entire civil rights advocacy organizations in the U.S. activated, including organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union, which is a huge organization that is devoted to civil rights, and it does not take any positions on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in particular. However, it has been very outspoken against efforts to expand the definition of anti-Semitism. And all that has happened here is that where these efforts have failed through Congress before, through legislation like the so-called Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, these groups that are pushing for this agenda have now found an ally in President Trump to impose by decree that opinion on the country in a way that has not, because they have not been able to achieve it in any other way. And it's only a matter of time before that falls apart.
All right, Omar Badar, we thank you for joining us from Washington.